Yeah, so thank you very much, John, for that, for those words and for those three messages at the end. So harmonization, good regulation based on the principle that Christophe will explain again in a minute, and then this issue of regulatory coordination. So maybe, John, if I can just come back on what you said in your speech and on two issues first. One is the trust issue, which is absolutely key, obviously. But you could say, and if I am playing the big tech advocate, if you want, I would not say the devil advocate, but the big tech advocate, you could say it's also in their interest to protect trust, you know, because of course, I mean, their businesses is based on user engagement, and this user engagement is depending on trust. So why do you think, to ensure this trust, we need regulation, and why don't you think we can just count on them to ensure trust? As you are an economist, it's an incentive issue as always, but I don't know if you have a view. And then the second question I wanted to ask you is, in terms of this coordination among regulators, so you have a good plea for the digital clearinghouse, which is a project that the EDPS has put out, and there is a very interesting concept note that the EDPS has put on its website. And basically what the digital clearinghouse is to say, look, I mean, we have to have a pragmatic coordination across the Draghi count that there is 270 regulators, European and national, for the digital value chain, so 270. So the issue is, how do you think this coordination can take place? And again, to me, it's a question of incentive. What are the incentives of CNAM and others to cooperate with each other? Okay, so I don't know, on this trust issue and this coordination issue, I don't know if you have some, if you can help us on that.
Yeah, so I guess with the economics background, you're kind of saying, why would we end up in this kind of low trust equilibrium? Why is that the result of?
The mic is okay.
Is it on? Is it on?
Yeah,
okay. It's a bit distant. Yeah. Okay.
As we are online too.
Yeah, okay. So yeah. So why do we end up in this, or why could we end up in this low trust equilibrium? I think it's probably that some actors just have a higher are targeting different parts of the market, right? So they're not as concerned about trust, perhaps. Another possibility is that it's a coordination issue. So for example, the European Board of Digital Services last summer announced a coordinated action against pornographic websites. That was done at the same time that the European Commission was launching investigations into 4 of the very large platforms that are pornographic websites. And the reason that was done was because a counter-argument put forward for moving towards more robust age assurance measures on those sites was, well, if we do it, our customers will just move to other sites that are not doing it. And that includes the below thresholds. So that meant that a coordinated approach. So I think what that does suggest a particular kind of dynamic there. Just on your question about what could the digital clearinghouse mechanisms look like, and what incentives do regulators have to get involved in those? So I think you can look to national level to get some examples of how this is working already. So in Ireland we have what we call the Digital Regulators Group. So in there is included our Data Protection Authority, Competition and Consumer Protection Authority, and our telecommunications regulator, ComReg. We recognised early on that we sort of had a common interest in anticipating the various pieces of legislation that were coming down the track from Europe. Where were they going to land? What was our institutional structure going to look like? How were we going to resource it? What new skills would we have? So there's definitely sort of a common interest in building the institutions and the capacity. As we've matured a bit, we now coordinate on, I would say, strategically on issues. So for example, ourselves and the Data Protection Commission have a common message that we put out with respect to minors. So we've issued this as kind of a high-level statement kind of emphasizing minor protection as a core part of our kind of strategic objectives of the two organizations. And what that means in practice is that, for example, Safer Internet Day just a couple of weeks ago, we put out a common communications, a digital communications plan, which seemed to have become quite picked up. I think as these things mature, you will see the conversations about regulatory and enforcement priorities come into it. But I think it's still kind of early days for that. I think you can draw from those kinds of examples at national level and bring them up to European level. It does become more complicated, no doubt. The higher level group is an example of that. It's an early example of that, but I think I would support kind of initiatives around the digital clearinghouse as a possible way forward for that.
Okay, thank you very much, Jan, to share those experiences. Now let's go to you, Kai. So, you are specifically now involved in one of the digital omnibus, the one on AI. But I would like to reflect a little bit more broadly. How do you think we can make the EU digital rulebook more streamlined, and to be sure that it is protecting innovation and that we can reclaim our future, as you like? So, how do you see that happening? And specifically because you are in the European Parliament, how do you see the European Parliament working on it?
Good question. Maybe today I'm a bit more gloomy than normally because
even more. Wow!
Because I'm coming directly from the technical meeting on the AI omnibus and was annoyed about certain things. But yeah, let me start to reply to your question. So. First of all, we as EPP Group and Axel and I personally are, of course, very happy with this shift of the mindset here in Brussels that better regulation, but also simplification, in our eyes also deregulation in certain areas, is now such a big priority. So this is very good. It's also very good that the Commission understood that certain, let's say, activities from them were maybe not that helpful and need to be renewed. Maybe they need to think a little bit more about alternative steps and so on and so on. And of course, in general, to now simplify with the AI omnibus, with the digital omnibus, but also with the digital fitness check that is hopefully still coming, is a good thing. When you are now, however, looking into the details, and this is why I'm a bit more gloomy or angry this morning, is that I feel, well, despite this, let's say, high-level understanding that certain things need to be changed, when it comes to the detail or practices, nothing really has changed. Zach, one of the co-authors, and myself and many others in our European Way paper basically criticized three things that we were saying were leading to a kind of EU delivery gap in the digital field. It was, first of all, no overarching vision. Just one example, the AI Act should have said, in my opinion, something on sustainability, should make certain links. It's also something that the member states were mentioning several times. They are advocating for an addition of sustainability in the digital decade. The last actor was the Telco Council who made this plea. But in our negotiations, we were always being told, no, this is kind of a different policy cycle or silo. We cannot mix it. We cannot talk about it. And if we now look into the omnibuses, again, we see exactly that yes, we are doing certain fixes. But if you, for example, compare Article 88 in the digital omnibus, so data omnibus, GDPR, with Article 4A in the AI omnibus or AI Act, both should help AI developers, deployers to train their AI systems in a more innovation-friendly way. But those two elements were not really streamlined because two different silos in the Commission were working on it, because there's still not really a well-functioning inter-service consultation and so on. So to your question, what would need to change is that we are really learning from Draghi and finally have building an overarching vision. We can look in the digital decade, but what we claimed is that it's not enough, that the Commission and the co-legislators should think about more, that we also, this was our second point, are thinking about the whole digital value chain or tech stack, because there again, many things are not really working with each other. In certain areas, the strategic understanding is completely lacking. If you look in the quantum computing strategy, the Commission was not really aware where we have certain strengths in Europe. They are basically distributing money without the strategic thinking. So let me stop there maybe as the first point. We really need much more strategy, much more cross-silo work and thinking and cooperation. Again, I think there we really failed in terms of learning from Draghi letter report and other reports. Then, of course, again, simplification is good. The first steps that have been done are at least going in a good direction, but again, and we talked about it bilaterally, I still am not convinced that the Commission is the right actor to initiate a simplification strategy, because it was basically them who created those laws. So I would have loved to give the task to make a clear assessment of overlaps, contradictions to Alexandre, to Zach, to some researchers that are not part of the machine, are not part of the EU institutions, and give us in the end a neutral, objective overview of issues that we then go basically line by line through and solve on a very technical level. So far, again, I don't really see here that we are really going back to those 101 laws, really checking everything that we are for example, comparing what is being done in cybersecurity, how this is matching with certain obligations in product safety, and so on, because back again to silos. And maybe a last point is that here I become a little bit nostalgic, because I feel when I came to Brussels, it was working a bit better, because back then laws were much more principle-based. So regulations and directives really, for example, if you look in the 1985 product liability regulation, you see that it's I think 12 laws, 12 articles, very high level, and then in implementation and in the member states, case law was being built, also researchers and lawyers were thinking about it, but now we do the opposite. We are often going in every detail, and then in the end we are seeing that it's still not really enough. Then we are adding technical guidelines, we are adding implementing acts, delegated acts, and so on and so on. And even with them, the prime example is Article 5 AI Act and 150 pages in the guidelines, and after reading all of those, you still don't really know what AI systems should be prohibited. This we should also try to overcome and go, in my opinion, back to the roots and focus as EU co-legislators really on creating overarching general laws and leave the details to the member states, to implementation and so on. Because I'm talking already so long, very shortly what the Parliament can do, because I bashed now here and there a bit the Commission. Of course, we are also a big part of the problem, because what I just said, we were definitely even making worse as Parliament, because it was often us who were adding all those additional details that the Commission originally didn't want, for example, in the AI Act, but also in DSA, in Cyber Resilience Act, and so on and so on. So we should definitely be more careful what we are adding. Finally, we as Parliament, but also the Council, should live up to the interinstitutional agreement, think about impact assessments, about certain things that we are adding that are really new and comprehensive. In our paper, we were also talking about the innovation principles, thinking, not only about protecting certain elements or certain fields, but also about other things like innovation, like competitiveness, and so on. And maybe as a really last point, which we also mentioned in our paper, implementing acts and delegated acts, in my opinion, it's good that there's a discussion that the number should be decreased, but if now the co-legislators, even if those numbers are being decreased, are continuing to, in all situations where they are not able to align and find a common position, give the Commission basically the job to fix this problem, I think then it means that also the Parliament needs to attend, for example, meetings with the Council and the Commission to really properly discuss implementing acts, because it cannot be, from a democratic standpoint, that really important issues that are not technical at all are being decided in those comitology committees. Maybe I stop there, but I could go on and make an even longer list. So again, maybe to summarize, I think there are a lot of things missing. It's a good step to talk about simplification, to have more and more events like that. But we should do much more, and we should have a much more comprehensive and strategic approach.
Okay, very quickly, because and then I can take one or two questions from the room if there are none, and then we will move to the next panel. But very quickly, again, it's a question of incentive. You know, what are the incentives of the MEP to do what you want to do? You know, because if you don't change the incentive, I mean, I don't think they will change. I mean, we can say, okay, it's better, but I mean, people react to their incentive. And if you assess an MEP as the number of reports or the number of own initiative report or shadow rapporteur he has done, of course, he or she will push for more laws. So how can we change incentive of the MEP?
It's almost impossible right now. So
I have one idea, for instance, and to have a KPI instead of the number of reports you do, how much you contribute for innovation in Europe. You could have an innovation KPI per. I mean, of course, it will be complicated to do, but I mean, I think everything is possible if you think. But I really think that we need to change incentive. Question from the room,
very,
and then
very shortly, just on that. So. You are right, and the KPI idea was coming from Digital Europe, I think 5 or 6 years ago. It's a really good example, but why I'm so negative is exactly what you are saying. MEPs don't have motives or incentives to do it like that. What I believe, first of all, we need new EU treaties. There's no way that it works without, but of course it's right now extremely difficult with the geopolitical situation and so on and so on. But this is now really my personal opinion, Axel shares it, so that right now the EU institutions are kind of locked. They are not really able to do big reforms, which is why we are thinking that there needs to be a push from the outside. So from companies, from NGOs, from, in general, civil society and so on, pushing certain ideas in the policy cycle and force policymakers, but also EU officials, to really change. But until this is happening, I don't really see the EU institutions make those really big steps that I was talking about.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if there are one or two questions. Keep it short. A question, so we have the two person there. And then you will reply, and then...
Is it working? Can you hear me? Yeah. Eva Heusing from Confederation of Swedish Enterprise. There was an event on Monday exactly about this issue. It was beyond omnibuses. And the Swedish Minister for European Affairs was there, and she said constraints. You have to, the Parliament, the Commission and the Council that's a kind of responsibility, and there was a window of opportunity right now. So how can you do that? And maybe we have to go back and revise the interinstitutional agreement. Maybe we have to really to go to the bottom of it. And I mean, the better regulation toolbox is there. We should just use it.
Okay, thank you. And the woman on the back.
Hi, it's Dominguez for European Digital Rights. And we mentioned innovation, we mentioned interinstitutional cooperation, but one of the things that I think hasn't been mentioned is fundamental rights. And actually, if you ask us, this is the role that of MEPs, right, defending people's fundamental rights. So yeah, because all of us have seen that many people criticize the omnibus and simplification. Simplification can be good if it's actually helping people, companies, but now what we're seeing is more so deregulation. So what will be your reaction to that? Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. So we spoke about fundamental right. I think it was one of his big points about the cost of fundamental right. And I think you were really, this is a really important, because the cost of losing fundamental right is massive, massive. But okay, so if you can react to what you have heard, and maybe also as we are closing, maybe, we have this digital platform summit now every year at CERRE. What you would like to see next year happening, until next year happening, if you have a dream, like the other one, what you would like to see until the next CERRE Digital Platform Summit? John and then Kai.
So when I was speaking, up there, I kind of alluded to the fact that the current digital rulebook is still really young. Okay, the regulators are, in many cases, are still only building up the capability to enforce what's in the current book. Okay, so what I would like to see next year is a doubling down on applying the current rulebook and not be completely obsessed with changing it all the time. There's a lot of good stuff in there, and if we resource the regulators properly to do their job, you will see a lot of the change that we want to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, maybe first to the question. So, well, I think in the parliament there's a huge majority nowadays to maybe not look so much into new rules to protect fundamental rights, but yeah, first of all, make sure that the existing ones are clear. We talked about it, you and I, the relationship of fundamental rights impact assessment and the data protection impact assessment. Maybe there are different opinions, but in the end, I think it's all for aligning and making sure that what we have works and is not colliding, but even more important is to finally enforce the rules that we have. No? And there I know that we are completely aligned. I think this was a big problem in the past, and I know that almost all political groups are really aligned on that point. And my hope is that through the simplification process, the question of enforcement, and this brings us back to Digital Enforcement Agency or the proposal from the EDPS and so on, that this triggers a broader discussion how we can improve it. And to your question, next year I would really hope that we are talking less about reducing the number of laws or reducing an opaque burden on companies and so on by making unrelated things that in the end do not really have a strong impact on anything, but are really going much more into detail and thinking about how we can do better laws, because this I don't see right now.